Today we're talking about the brand new DJI Air 3 and some of the main settings that you need to change as soon as you get this drone. You might be upgrading from like a DJI Mini 3 Pro, it could be your first ever drone. Follow these tips now and your DJI Air 3 will be even better. So I'm going to be showing you these settings on the new DJI RC2, so just follow along if you want to. You can pause this video, come back to it. First thing you want to do is hit Go Fly in the bottom right hand corner, and then to access these settings, which I'm going to go through first of all, you want to go into the top right hand corner and hit those three dots on the screen. So now we're into this menu here, and the main menu here, which is safety, is going to be the most important aspect before you go off and fly every single time. Now if you do enjoy tech and drone content, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because I've got a load of other videos similar to this coming really soon as well, you don't want to miss out on. Okay, the first tab here you'll see is called Flight Assistance. So what Flight Assistance does, this is going to give you the obstacle avoidance modes on your drone. So it has bypass, brake and off. Now majority of the time, I would say about 90% of the time, you want to select bypass. What this does is the drone then, if it detects any objects, it will avoid them and bypass them. So that's really handy and you should have that on the majority of the time. Now a lot of the time I also have it to switch to off. This is because if I'm flying, say, indoors through a small object, anything where I actually know the risks involved and I might be flying through a gap for instance, I don't want the obstacle avoidance sensors to see all these obstacles and then start moving the drone. I want to have full control on it. In that situation I would hit it to off. But if you're just flying normally, you're not flying through any small gaps, you're not taking lots of risks, I would keep it on bypass majority of the time. And then you'll notice you've got bypassing options. Now you have normal and nifty. Now I just keep this on normal all the time. Nifty, as soon as you hit that, you'll see this warning box saying that it basically changes the altitude and the drone detects objects a bit different, but use with caution. So anything that says use with caution, I would say hit cancel, because this is an expensive drone. Hit normal and it's going to avoid the objects in the most normal way, the most calmest way. I wouldn't use nifty. Now underneath here you'll see display radar map. Have this turned on all the time. This is going to make sure that your radar map in the bottom left hand corner is on all the time. It will show you any objects in that area. It will show you the direction the drone is pointing. It will show you your home location. Have that on all the time. Now I'm not going to go through every single setting on here. I'm going through the key settings, so if I do miss some, that's the reason. So advanced return to home, super important. Now you have optimal and you have preset on the Air 3. So preset, this basically means that you can choose the flight altitude for the return to home. So if you're in an area and you've got lots of trees in that area, you want to actually have quite a high return to home altitude. So it's going to actually, if it disconnects, it's going to climb above those trees and then come back to you in one straight line. So in that situation, I could have it at say 120 meters and then I would set it to preset. Now if you hit optimal, what the drone will do, it will find its own kind of like intelligent way back to you in the fastest way possible. But the risk to that is, again, it's more air of caution. If you're in an area where you've got lots of trees, lots of obstacles, do you really want the drone to be coming back to you the fastest way, weaving in and out of all these obstacles? Or do you want it to just go straight up over the obstacle and then just fly back in a straight line? I would pick that one. So for me personally, I set it to preset and then I change my return to home altitude, you know, depending on the height of any obstacles in that area. But majority of the time, it's just on 120 meters. Update home point is super important if you're going to be on something that is moving. So maybe a car, a bike, a boat. I'll show you how to use that when we switch over to the drone in the air, but I'll come back to that one. Flight protection, okay, max altitude and max distance. So these are ones that you're going to actually want to have set on your country's restrictions. So majority of the time, it's actually 120 meters or 400 feet, the max altitude. Now, if you're going about the side of a mountain, it's going to be different because your actual ground level is going to be changing all the time. So I would then change that to say 500 meters. I'm never going to go 500 meters in height, but it just means I'm not going to get any notifications, any pop-ups, any warnings on the controller when I'm actually flying, concentrating in that area. Same with max distance. You can actually set this anywhere from 20 meters all the way up to 8,000 meters, which if you do that, you're probably breaking like every single law in your country. So I really don't advise that. But again, I just set mine to say no limits. So again, most of the time I'm not flying far out at all. I'm just flying in the area that I'm in, concentrating on getting that footage, but I don't want any messages, any pop-ups saying you've gone further than 20 meters. It's just going to distract me. So I would have that set to max. And then the max altitude, normally about 120 meters. Now the DJI Air 3 has a light underneath it. In some countries this is an actual requirement when you're flying at night to have this set to auto. You can just select on as well, and you can select off, so it's pretty cool that you can actually have full manual controller, and it is a really bright light as well under that DJI Air 3. I just have mine set to auto. And the aircraft front LEDs, it has light at the front of the drone as well. So again, in your country, it could be a requirement at night. But if you select auto on this, when you're actually filming footage, taking pictures, it will turn those front LEDs off. So you minimize the risk of getting any of these colors on your videos or photos from the drone's LED lights. And if we scroll now to the very bottom of this menu, you'll see advanced safety settings, super important. Majority of the time, if you lose signal, you want to actually select return to home. So the drone will come straight back to your home point. You don't want to ever select descend, and hover is only in the situation where your home point is going to be changing. So let's just say, for instance, you're riding a bike. Your home point could be like a mile away back there. You don't want the drone to come all the way back to you. You want it to just hover in place, and then you could maybe cycle to where that drone is. If you look at the very bottom of the advanced safety settings menu, you'll see Air Sense. I would 100% recommend turning that on. This is then going to give you alerts. It's going to actually detect any manned aircraft in the skies and give you an alert on the screen. It even shows you on that radar map where the actual aircraft is, how far away it is. It is brilliant. I would have that turned on. If we now move over to the next menu under control, you'll see in gain and expo tuning. I would change some of this because out of the factory settings, I think it's just a bit too fast and too severe. So if you look now, you've got cine and normal, and then you can actually go onto the aircraft and you can actually move these sliders and change how fast that aircraft actually moves, basically sideways, forwards, backwards. And I would just slow all them values down just a little bit. But the main one you actually want to slow down the most is the actual gimbal tilt, how much that gimbal tilts up and down. Again, straight out the factory, it's too fast. Let's just go down to cine, and we'll go right to the very bottom of this menu, and you'll see gimbal max control tilt and gimbal tilt smoothness. Now I have mine set to 8 on the actual max controlled speed, and tilt smoothness I have it to 15. If you have a lower value, so closer to 0, when you do that, it will just be a really abrupt ending, which just looks awful. I have it on 15, so it's more like a smooth pan and it's a smooth ending. It looks a lot better. Change that. So have a look at that and actually change it to your preference. But I would say just bring everything down a little bit, just 1 or 2, and you'll notice a big difference, especially on that gimbal movement. On that same menu, if you go to remote controller and you select button customization, now what this allows you to do is on the back of the controller, you can select different customization options. So the C1 and C2 button, what I've got selected for the C1 button, I've gone and actually selected cruise control, which is at the very bottom of that menu. This allows you then to activate cruise control automatically just by actually flying the drone, hitting that C1 button, and the drone will then continue its path. The C2 button you can also customize as well. So I would have this selected and I would choose the recenter tilt down gimbal option. This means if I just press this, it's going to tilt that gimbal down straight away. So if I'm doing a top-down shot, I don't have to manually actually move that gimbal all the way down. I can hit that and it just goes down really fast. Hit it again and it's straight back to center. So change that. You'll thank me later. If we now move over to the camera section, under video, this is going to be what you're going to be using the most, aren't you? Now, normal is going to be good enough for any beginners out there, anybody who hasn't got any skills really at color grading. Just keep it in normal and keep it like that and then learn this skill. For everybody else, if you can color grade, I would select D-Log-M. This is going to be a 10-bit color profile. It's the very best quality you're going to get from your drone using D-Log-M. You have to color grade it though, so it actually protects the highlights and the shadows, and then you can color grade that to get the very best quality. Now I do have my own DJI LUTs available on my website, and this is going to allow you to just drag and drop one of these LUTs onto your D-Log-M footage and completely bypass all of those color correction and color grading that you would have to do normally. So I'm going to link them at the top of the description as well if you want to go and check them out. But that's what I would personally suggest. Have a D-Log-M or normal. Now if it's like sunrise, sunset, something really vibrant, then use HLG. But a lot of computers, they struggle with HLG, so it's going to be dependent. I would actually say just use normal or D-Log-M. If we just move down that menu, you'll see grid lines. Now I would turn these on straight away. They're not on by default. So I have the rule of thirds one on, which is the middle one, and I also have the right hand dot as well. Have these on, it's going to allow you to frame your photos and videos so much easier, get much better quality framing shots by having these 2 grid lines on. You can have the third one on as well, but it just looks a little bit messy there, so I just have the last 2. For white balance, I just keep it as auto because I can always change the white balance when I'm editing if I need to. Transmission, I just keep it as dual band. So that is it in terms of actual settings on the controller, what you want to do. So the main ones really are going to be under that safety page and making sure that they're correct every single time before you go off and fly the drone. But there's also quite a few settings by default that are on the main screen when you actually have that drone in the air. And this is in relation to a lot of the resolution. So I'm now going to actually switch over to a voiceover and show you what I mean and tell you which settings to change. Now, one thing to remember is if you struggle with remembering any of these settings, because it is really easy to forget these, I brought out this start of the year DJI cheat sheets, and these are now available for all different drones, including the DJI Air 3. And these just go through all the different settings that you want to actually use on your drones to get the very best out of it, with loads of other tips as well. So these are available on my website, just $9.99. If you want to go and check them out, I'm also going to link them at the top of the description for you. Now let's switch over to that voiceover. Okay, once the drone's in the air, we're going to change a few settings now. So the first setting is going to be in relation to photos. So by default, out of the factory, it's limited to just JPEG. You need to go and change this to JPEG and RAW. This way you're going to get a JPEG file, but also a RAW file that's going to capture a lot more information for color grading. Also, because it's a fixed f1.7, if you're not using an ND filter, I recommend you change this to -0.7 or -0.3 in photos. Otherwise, it's going to be quite exposed. We can see now you can even bring it down to -1, but if you keep it at 0, it's just too bright. There's too much exposure there without an ND filter on. The third one is actually relating to master shots. So master shots is limited again to 1080p 30. By default, you've got a DJI Air 3. You want to actually use the 4K quality. So click on the res and FPS and actually select 4K. Now you can either use 4K 30 or 60. Just use 4K 30 for majority of the time. Also in quick shots, it's the same. That's by default, it's limited to 1080p. So go and change this just like I have, and then you can select 4K 30 again. If you want to do slow-mo, you can do 4K 60, and then you can slow that footage down even more. You can also use master shots and quick shots in that vertical mode for sharing to social media really fast. Okay, video, I highly recommend you can get some ND filters for this drone when shooting in video. And you can see now, by default in these weather conditions, my shutter is 1/4000, which is really high. That means that image is really sharp. So when I'm in different locations, like in Portugal for instance, I was using ND filters, and then I can bring my shutter speed right down. Now it should be, for this instance, 1/50, and you can see now if I do that without an ND filter, it just looks terrible, really overexposed. If I had an ND filter on, I could still have a really low shutter speed of 1/50 and get brilliant looking results like this. Without it, you're going to have to bring your shutter speed really high, up to 1/4000 or 5000. So that video is just going to look really sharp and unnatural. So get some ND filters. The next one is relating to the actual 3x zoom. I did notice when I first got this that the 3x zoom was also defaulting to 1080p. So just select 1x and 3x and make sure your res and FPS is selected to 4K. I would say for where I'm filming in England, 4K 25 or 4K 30. And then I can also use 4K 60 if I want to do any slow-mo, but I wouldn't be using 4K 60 all the time. I'd be using that just for slowing stuff down. Most of the time I'm in 4K 25 or 4K 30. And now the drone's in the air, you can also go to update home point. So like the example before, if I'm moving location, I'm on a bike, my home point is going to be changing all the time. So you see that remote controller icon, you can just select that icon, hit OK, and it will update your home point to your current location. Don't forget that. So there's a lot of settings there that actually aren't enabled by default, and these settings are going to actually make your footage a lot better. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. If you did, just hit that like button. It really does help out getting this to more people. And I'm really on a mission to get 15% of you who watch these videos subscribed. Only about 10% of you who watch these videos actually are subscribers. I would love it if we can get that number to 15. So if you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because I've got loads of content coming really soon. Go and check out my website for the DJI cheat sheets and any LUTs you want to pick up, and have a fantastic day. See you in the next one. Bye bye.